Hey everybody, it is You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions. Slightly different setup this week just because of how hectic Christmas has been on my production schedule as of late. It's just a little easier for me to do it this way this week as opposed to my typical setup. So everything else will be the same. I'm going to answer as many of your questions as I possibly can. And speaking of which, the very first question this week comes from Rebecca Garber, who says, Hey Steve, I am a theist, though my belief in God is rather detached. I don't ascribe to any particular religion, nor do I hold to any divine mandates, for lack of a better term. As a result, I find myself in a strange gray area in regards to religion and faith that puts me at odds with atheists and theists alike. I feel as though both sides are telling me to shit or get off the pot. I think my spiritual journey is progressing quite nicely, and I don't understand why some people think I should move faster. What are your thoughts regarding my predicament? Do you have any advice that you think would be helpful? The only advice I can give you is the advice that you have probably already thought of and already wish that the people trying to push you one direction or another would take on their own, which is you should not either shit or get off the pot until it's what you really want to do. There's nothing wrong with being on a spiritual journey if that is, in fact, sincerely where you are. You say you're a theist, but you don't really strongly believe in God. You're not an atheist. You're not super religious either. You're kind of just finding your way in the middle. Who knows? Maybe you'll rediscover some deep religious faith. Maybe you'll become a devout evangelical Christian, or maybe you'll convert to some other religion. Maybe you'll decide that maybe Wicca or Buddhism or some form of deism makes more sense to you, and you'll go that way. Maybe you'll decide that there is no God, or that you have concluded most reasonably that there probably isn't, and you'll start to call yourself an atheist. Maybe you'll determine, as kind of is suggested in your full question, which I unfortunately had to edit a bit for this video, just for sheer length, you suggest that maybe you might have some agnostic leanings. Maybe the notion of the knowability of God is something you totally reject. Maybe the question to you is unanswerable as to whether or not there is a God, or whether or not we can actually know God. Maybe that's where you end up. Who knows? But it's up to you, and it's based on you and your thoughts and your experiences and where you go in life. And whether your friends are atheists or your friends are theists, it's not really fair of them to try to drag you in either direction, or to tell you, well, this is where you're supposed to go. I don't really buy that. I don't really agree with that. When I speak up for atheism, when I defend atheism, and I attack and critique religion, I'm doing that from my own perspective. I'm doing that to speak for myself, to say things that I think make sense to me, and perhaps they'll make sense to you as well, or perhaps they'll make sense to somebody else. Sometimes I think things I say might strengthen someone's atheism, and sometimes, and I know this for a fact because people have told me, sometimes arguments I make have actually triggered revelations in someone's mind, or given them a new idea, and actually ended up strengthening their religious faith. So everybody's different. Everybody reacts to information in different ways. Everybody discovers new things every day. I think I'm right. I think when I say there almost certainly is no God, that is the most reasonable position, and I really think I'm right. But if someone else has a different belief, they can believe it just as sincerely and with just as much conviction as I hold my belief, or lack of belief, however you wish to state it. And that's perfectly fine. And it's not for me to push them in what I feel is the right direction. It's for me to represent myself and to share my thoughts and my opinions and my reasons and my justifications and my defenses with them. But it's not for me to say, you need to become an atheist. You need to shit or get off the pot. You need to decide right now that you're going to be an atheist, or you're going to be a theist. Don't listen to either one of those people. Continue your journey and go wherever it is that you feel you must go. That is my advice to you. Patrick Dodds. Steve, how would you categorize meditation and yoga? Woo or non-woo? Or perhaps, given that there are many legitimate healthcare providers who do recommend it, mainly for physical and neurological reasons only, not so much for consciousness expanding, some sort of a gray area? I think that they both have very tangible benefits. I think it depends. I mean, if you attach a spiritual or a supernatural or sort of a transcendent quality to them, then I would say woo. But if you view yoga as a form of exercise and meditation as a form of relaxation, I don't think there is necessarily a wooey aspect to either one of those. I think they can both be very beneficial. You don't have to believe that there's any sort of consciousness expanding spiritual element to the exercises in yoga to get some real physical benefit from it. I think yoga just in and of itself is just a physical activity can be incredibly helpful to people, incredibly beneficial. And I think the other stuff, the spiritual stuff, is just unnecessary. It's just kind of layered on the top to make it seem like more than it is. You can completely discard that. And the same thing with meditation. I think there's great value in being able to sort of quiet your mind. And you don't have to do it ritualistically if you don't want to. You don't have to meditate in any particular way. You don't have to focus on any particular thing. You can just sit quietly. Just find a quiet moment to yourself where you're alone and you're in a room, and you can have light, you can have it be dark, you can be doing whatever you want, but just sit quietly and close your eyes and try to just relax. I mean, there's great value in that. It's very relaxing. It's very stress relieving. It's nice sometimes, especially if you have a very busy schedule or a very hectic life, or you've just been through some really serious, heavy experiences. You've been tried a lot lately, to just be able to just chill out. You know, there's tremendous value in that, and there's nothing woo related there at all. It's only when you add that shit on top, when you say, oh, I'm not just relaxing my body and my brain, I'm not just exercising and building my muscles or learning flexibility, or I'm expanding my consciousness, I'm becoming one with the universe, I'm connecting to these invisible magical things. I think that's all horseshit. But if you wipe away the horseshit, the underlying activity is very beneficial, I think. McJ1, hey Steve, what's your opinion on indie/foreign films? Having lived Hollywood adjacent for many years, I've had the opportunity to talk to a number of people who work in movies, and they tend to agree with me. They can be great. Some of my all-time favorites are indie foreign films, but the bulk of them are either overly earnest, too self-important, or just garbage. I ask because I'm tired of the film elitists who say that if you don't like indie foreign films, it's because you don't get it, which is basically calling you stupid. I like complicated, I like a message, and I get it, but oftentimes it's still junk. Not that mainstream films have any less trash, but they don't have apologists. Thanks. I agree with you 100%. I love independent film. I love foreign film. It's always great as an American to be able to connect to an artist that has a different perspective, that will use different techniques, that will tell a story from a different point of view, or will tell a story with a different tone or a different sensibility. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing about cinema and about how versatile the art form is. And for that reason, yeah, I treasure foreign film and American independent film as well. It's the same sort of thing. You get a different personality. You get a different viewpoint. And when those films work, when those films are good, it's the most wonderful thing in the world. But you're absolutely right. There's nothing inherently superior about an indie film or a non-Hollywood film. Let's put it that way, to include foreign films as well. There's nothing inherently superior about that. And a foreign film or an independently produced film can be garbage just as easily as a mass-produced, studio-driven, billion-dollar Hollywood epic. It's just snobby. You say that you call them elitists, and I think that's right. It's just to say that there is no value in Hollywood movies, that the Hollywood studio system has never produced anything on par with whatever you think the best independent film is just ridiculous and snobby. I mean, I love movies. I can get as serious and up my own ass about film criticism and serious movies and independent cinema as anybody wants me to be. But I still have a core of my movie fan self that loves romance, that loves adventure, that loves excitement, that loves Hollywood films when they are done right, just as much as I love a gritty very personal, very quirky, idiosyncratic, independent film. The Tranny Atheist. Question, Steve, how do you personally deal with death threats and harassment on YouTube? Also, what would you do if your account was hacked? I am really interested in making my own YouTube videos in the future. However, I have a fear of some homophobic jerkface coming to my home and killing me and my dog. Well, I have never received what I would call a credible threat. If something like that happened, I would report it to the police, and I would report it to YouTube, and I would treat it very seriously. I would say, you know, what can we do about this? Can we find out who this is, and can we maybe like arrest them and charge them with something? I would treat it very seriously. But for most like just abusive YouTube comments that I get, people saying you're a fucking asshole, you should die, or blah blah blah, I just either ignore them, or if it becomes really obnoxious, I just block them. You know, I just I remove them from the conversation and I cut them off from me. So I treat it like that. If it's something that I feel like needs to be taken seriously, I would involve the authorities. If it's just some fucking, 15-year-old troll who can't get laid and he's pissed at me because I said nice things about feminists, or he thinks that I, insulted some sci-fi fantasy franchise that he loves in a 5 Stupid Things video, I just block him or her. Probably him. I just block that person and get on with my life because I've got better shit to do. Hugh Jazz. Hi, Steve. I plan on going to college next year for the first time and was wondering how you feel about the whole university experience. Also, is it weird to be a 23-year-old freshman living on campus? What would you think if you were 18 and knew someone that old at college? Finally, did you live in a dorm on campus? I know you went to college, but I wasn't sure if you went through all that jazz. Was it like they say, the greatest time of your life? Well, I was like 25. I think, when I started college, so I was a little older than you. But I did not live on campus. My wife and I, my girlfriend at the time, we live very, very close to the university that I attended, so I never lived on campus. So I never, and I mean, other than, I like went to class and then left. I didn't get involved very much in the university experience like that in campus culture. I never went to a football game or a basketball game. I never really did any extracurricular activities that I didn't have to do as part of a class. So I didn't really get involved in that. And part of it I think was the age thing. Most of the students were not a lot younger than me, but they were right out of high school, and I had been out of high school for 7 years. So there was a little bit of a separation there. I mean, I made some friends, but we were never super close. There are a few people from college that I still talk to that I consider friends, and I'm like, oh, I'm glad I met that person. But for the most part, it was all about my education. It was focusing on the work and the classes, and in that sense, it was great. I mean, it was really great. I learned so much. I feel like I grew a lot as a person. And it was an invaluable experience that I would not change at all, even though I am now basically running a YouTube channel for a living, and I'm not really using my English creative writing degree for anything. But I'm glad that I have it, and I'm glad I got that education. It's been a huge, huge, huge benefit to me and to my writing and to my interaction with people and my life and everything. I don't know if I'd call it the greatest time of my life because it's not really separate from the rest of my life, because I continue to live in the same place and I continue to do a lot of the same things that I was doing before and have been doing since. But yeah, it was a major, major experience and hugely positive. Emily Schmidt, I have a question about art. I work with someone that at one point wanted to be a cartoonist and even tried going to art school. He gave up because he said he couldn't handle the rules of art. But I feel that's not what art is about, considering some of the greatest artists of all time broke all the so-called rules. I just want to know, what is your opinion on something like this? Well, you need to know what the rules are before you can break them. Someone who says, and I don't know your friend, I don't want to be too presumptuous, but many people I have known, and most of the people I have known who've thought this way have been writers, not necessarily visual artists, but I think it's a similar mindset. There's so many rules. I just can't take the rules, man. I just want to do my own thing, You need to learn the rules before you can break them. You need to learn what the conventions are before you can subvert them. You need to have knowledge and experience and a frame of reference that you can draw upon and work within before you can use things like subversion and inversion and irony and juxtaposition, all these tools that artists and writers and storytellers use to create very interesting, sophisticated work. You need to know what the rules are before you can play around with them. And there's a certain amount of craft. I don't care what your art form is. I don't care what kind of writing you like to do. I don't care what kind of movies you want to make. There is an element of craft that you have to learn. And you just can't get around it. And some of it won't always be fun. And some of it will feel like work. And some of it will be really hard. But if you care about your craft and you care about learning it and getting better at it, I don't see any other option but to just do it. Take, for example, a great modern beat poet like Allen Ginsberg, who is not known for writing very rigidly formal work, but he used to teach poetry classes. I think he actually started a school, or was one of the founders of a school of writing and poetics. And one of the classes he taught was on the metaphysical poets of the Renaissance and on these incredibly formal, rigid poetic structures that you would think a beat poet would run in the opposite direction of. But he told his students, you need to know this. You need to know the history of what you're doing. You need to know what the rules are before you can break them. It's very, very, very important. And I don't know your friend, but usually someone who says something like that, who gives up because they say, they're trying to impose all these rules on me. I mean, it's really a judgmental thing to say, and I don't mean to impugn the character of your friend, but that's the sort of thing that lazy people say. That's the sort of thing that people who think they're creative or want to be creative, and then it turns out to be a little harder than they thought it would be, or it starts out really easy and fun, and then it gets a little hard, and they give up. It's an excuse for giving up. I'm sorry if that sounds a little harsh. Saint Weasel. Hey Steve, I've subscribed not long ago, so I'll probably repeat a question, but I'll make it interesting, I hope. Children. Want any? And were a woman to ask you for a sperm donation, and let's say you could trust this woman to make a great parent together with her infertile/lesbian mate, would you consider to take part in fulfilling their dream for a family? And if so, how strongly would you want to see that child develop? I don't want children myself. I don't plan to have any. My wife and I don't plan to have any. But as far as the sperm donation thing, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I would be happy to be involved in the kid's life if they wanted me to be. I would be like an uncle or a friend or something like that. I mean, obviously I wouldn't be interested in being like a full parent and being a father figure to the kid. But, you know, if the parents who were actually raising the child wanted me to be involved in some way, I guess I would be able to do that. But I don't want kids myself. I don't want to be a parent. And, you know, even the sperm donation thing is something I'm sure that my wife and I would really have to discuss. And if she wasn't comfortable with it, then I would not do it. You know, it would be as simple as that. It's all about me and her, which is one of the reasons why I don't want to have kids. I mean, because I feel like if you're going to be a parent, you should be completely devoted to the kid. And being devoted to a child is not something that I am really interested in doing. So I feel like it's the most responsible thing to not have one. You know, call me crazy. The lightning sounds kind of the same in this room as it does in the other room, doesn't it? It's weird. You would think the acoustics would be a little different, but whatever. Anyway, time for
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions. Glib and adequate answers.
Der Wunderbar. If the part of Captain Picard were to be recast, who would you choose? Christopher Eccleston. I saw someone suggest that online earlier when I was going over some things for this question, and I just can't get that suggestion out of my head. That would be perfect. Christopher Eccleston as a new Captain Picard. I think that'd be really cool. Larry Vickers. Hey, Steve, have you ever played Dungeons & Dragons or another tabletop role-playing game? If not, do you feel like it's something you would enjoy? You seem like the type of person who would enjoy them, if there is a type. I've never played. I've never wanted to play. I remember I have a memory of being like in middle school and seeing some of my friends playing at like a birthday party and just thinking it looked like the most boring, pointless thing I'd ever seen in my life. And also I used to date a girl who was really heavy into gaming. She didn't do tabletop games, but she did like online role-playing games. And she would spend just days creating really detailed characters for her games, and I just thought it was the biggest waste of time. It's just not my thing. Terry Williams, you've probably answered this before, but do you prefer DC or Marvel? DC, if I have to choose, but it's kind of like Star Trek and Star Wars. Like, although I have a very clear preference for one, I have nothing but affection and love for the other. Like, I'm not anti-Marvel at all. And in fact, in terms of movies, Marvel is fucking murdering DC. Louis Eng 114. In your answer to my question about Star Wars, you said that the prequel trilogies are no good. I heard that complained multiple times before from different people. What is so horrible about those movies? They're really, really boring. They're superfluous. They add nothing really to the original trilogy. They're just completely boring, unnecessary, joyless, tedious movies. Is the best I can tell you. Crypt Keeper, lightning round, beard trimmer, or are you old school? Beard trimmer, usually once every 2 weeks. I take a beard trimmer to the beard. As you can see, it has been a while. The next beard trimming is due for the day after I record this video, actually. But yeah, beard trimmer. Aaron Duke, Dear Steve, what do you consider your favorite movie of all time? Longtime viewers of my stuff will know that my favorite film of all time is Buster Keaton's Sherlock Jr. Love that movie. It's like 45 minutes of pure magic. Crocmaster McGee's Axe. Hey, Steven. There's a disagreement about Lucas's involvement with the success of the original Star Wars trilogy as films. What do you think? For my money, he's a good businessman who thinks fiscally, and the trilogy was best in Empire when he had the least involvement. Yeah, I agree that that Empire is the best, and I also agree that it is the best, most likely because it was the one that Lucas was least involved in. I think that's right on the money. That's exactly what I think. But look, Lucas made Star Wars. Lucas was at one time a very nimble, very creative filmmaker. So I can't say that he's just a good businessman. I think he had a really good idea, and then I think it became incredibly successful, and he started to take it way too seriously. That's what I think happened. I think he lost the fun and the creativity of it, and he started looking at it like he was building a very important modern mythology, and it completely ruined it. But yeah, everything else I'm in complete agreement on. Zacchaeus 4, when are you going to be on Sesame Street? About 5 seconds after they invite me, which will probably never happen. And also, it's for the best anyway, because I get the feeling that if I ever got to be on Sesame Street before Jason with a D got to be on Sesame Street, that there would be a murder-suicide in my future very, very swiftly. So, that's all for the best. Nuno1001. Steve, any thoughts on the current controversy regarding the release of the interview and the hack of Sony Entertainment by North Korea and the Guardians of Peace? I'm glad that they released the movie online. You can now see the interview on YouTube. I think you can rent it for like $5, which I think is great. But I mean, when the theater owners decided not to show it, when the theater owners canceled the initial release and Sony had to pull the movie, that right there was, there's no going back from that. I mean, now it's just sort of damage control. Now it's like, oh, wait, we are going to release it. It's like the line has already been crossed. You blinked, you were threatened and you blinked. And even if you only gave in momentarily, you still gave in. I just think it was a mistake. I don't know if I blame Sony for it or if I blame the theater owners for refusing to exhibit the film, but they blinked and it was a mistake. They should have gone like that and released the movie as scheduled. Sam Clemens, RIGL. Hey, Steve, after dealing with the likes of Ultra Creationist Cat and King Ghidorah, who will Mecha Shives battle for the upcoming holiday kaiju fight Genki Funtime Solstice Spectacular? The Virgin Mary? Baby Jesus? That angel who has a flaming sword? King Ghidorah disguised as the three wise men? Inquiring minds want to know. Happy feasting before huddling inside from the cold and Wolves Day. Oh boy, well it has to be a holiday theme, so maybe it would be on one side, it would be the evil team of maybe Mecha Jesus. Or no, not Mecha Jesus. It can't be Mecha Jesus. It would be like just giant kaiju Jesus. It would just be like a giant Jesus. And his partner would be the giant Frankenstein, the giant Toho Frankenstein from Frankenstein Conquers the World. And then it would be me, giant Mecha Shives, right? And my partner would be like a giant Santa Claus. So other than Mecha Shives, all the other kaijus would just be guys just stomping around in a model to look big. There wouldn't be any like monster costumes. I think that would be really, really awful and really hilarious. And I would love to do that. Hey, that's it for the questions. Before I get out of here, I want to do a shout out. And the shout out this week goes to, see, sometimes I give a shout out to a channel that I've watched for a long time and that I notice doesn't have like very many subs relative to mine, and I want to try to give them a boost. But sometimes, and maybe it's like because it's the holidays and it's just a gift that's been given to me from the heavens, but sometimes I feel like I have the honor, the privilege of discovering new talent, of finding a channel that doesn't have very many subs at all, but that is great and deserves tons and tons of subs. And I feel like I can share this new discovery with the world. So this new discovery of mine, someone who I have just started watching a few months ago and is just delightful, and is someone that I can't believe hasn't been part of my YouTube circle forever. But it's Jenny McDermott. Jenny McDermott makes the most awesomely weird, funny videos. She is an atheist. She is a feminist. She is all kinds of awesome things. And her videos are just, they're indescribable. They are so wonderfully, beautifully strange and funny. And she has a great sense of humor and a great personality. And it's just awesome. It's hard for me to describe her videos without just saying go watch them. So just go watch them. Jenny McDermott, she is awesome, and I can't recommend her highly enough. Well, that's it for me, everybody. I'm going to get out of here. Next week I will be back in my usual environs for a You Had to Ask video. So for that video, leave me a comment. Leave me a comment on this video that you're watching right now, and leave a question that I can answer in the next video. Ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too serious. Nothing is too silly. And I will answer as many of them as I possibly can in the next video. So until then, take care, everybody.